tonight's tactical enhancement is some more of the rock and rye whiskey. Tonight we're doing another Armies on Parade. I thought it was about time I dragged out one of mine to have a bit of a perv. This is for Warhammer. It's my Khorne Daemons army. And there's a bit of a saga to what the fuck happened when I collected this army, so I might just waffle my way through it and give you a journey down memory lane and a bit of a squiz at the mean-faced bastards while we do it. The original concept for this army was, you know, a White Dwarf inspired from many, many years ago when somebody had done a pure Khorne army instead of the usual mismatch of all the best things in the different armies. And I just love the idea of the monochrome. So it was on the list of things to do for a very long time. So I sort of got rid of some old armies that were painted like shit. Did the dwarves up properly, and did the wood elves up as best as I could possibly paint anything. And then I thought, well, I want to do something a bit simpler than that. And I mastered a couple of painting techniques by that point, so I thought it was time for these guys. So what I decided to do with this army was, instead of, a bit of adjustment on the close-up so you can look at while I'm talking shit. Instead of getting all the latest things like fucking hell cannons, which are the bane of my existence, and cheating, Khorne does not shoot. It's like giving Khorne magic. Leaders, you have hell cannons, be ashamed. I don't particularly like the Khorne chariots. I suppose that makes sense. You've got to have new miniatures that come out, keep everyone excited. But I wanted to do the original stuff, the pure, bog standard, monochrome, keep it simple army with just the core things. So I went to do 2 of each thing. So I've got 2 units of infantry of about 24, I think, per unit. I've got 2 of the heralds. One's a fighty herald, the other one's the standard bearer. He's over there next to the unit standard bearer. 2 units of dogs, or hellhounds, whatever the hell are they? Flesh hounds of Khorne.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
The first ones I painted up. And I started off with 2 units of the blood crushers. I still call them juggernauts.
They are juggernauts.
Yeah, they're juggernauts. Let's not get silly. Silly enough already, frankly.
Yeah.
And I originally had 2 units of 6. I thought that'll scare the pants out of people. Then Andrew pointed out to me that that's tactically ridiculous and cannonballs will go through them, and the second rank juggernauts can't fight, so it's a point sink that won't have a lot of impact. And I thought, well, shit, he's right. So I broke it up into 3 units of 4, because I really want 3 of the guys to hit, and you can pretty much expect to take a chunk of casualties on the way in. So just to make sure, I've usually got 3 guys when they hit. I've got a spare dude to take a cannonball on the face, and the rest will come along and do something nasty. The only thing I got 1 of is, well, I call him Fred. And Fred has a bit of a lean to him. I might comment on
what's going on with that? Why is he leaning over like that?
Well, I was going to waffle about that later, but since you asked.
Okay, sorry.
If you look at the box and the photos of this guy, he's always standing on a rock.
Okay.
Now, that doesn't come in the box. At least it didn't. This is the fine cast one. And, fuck, it was ready as crap cast.
Yeah, never again.
Never.
No more fun cast.
You would not believe the sheer amount of screaming and general frustration that went on while I was trying to assemble this fucker, because I didn't have a pin drill at the time and you really do need to pin the bits.
Yeah.
And I used some fucking hardcore glue as well. I don't muck around with that. So that was a nightmare. But you always see him standing on a rock. Now, if you look at the angle of his feet, get those in focus. All right, now that rock always has him standing on the back face of the rock. So instead of being flat, he's effectively like this.
Right, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, no, I didn't know that. I didn't notice that little feature when I built it. So I just glued him straight onto a flat base. And as a result, It looks like he's extremely enthusiastic. And look, I don't mind too much because when he's gunning into a unit...
Yeah, no, it does look good because his head is like, yeah.
He's I'll see if I can line him in there. And we'll move this around. We've had a few tactical enhancements this evening. You can see that he's just getting right in your face in a way that, you know, the new models that Games Workshop are coming out with are absolutely spectacular models, but they're huge and they don't have that okay, I'm big and scary and I'm right in your fucking face type of thing going on. They're more sort of lording it over everything. So anyway, I'll give you a nice close-up of his buttocks. How's that for an idea? There we go. There's the thing about painting this army is you paint an awful lot of arse cheeks. So anyway, that's why he's lunging forward like that. If I was to build it again, I'd probably do some trickery with the feet or something, or maybe just buy it. I can't really get these anymore. Ooh. Oh, fuck, Rocky Rye whiskey tastes better after it's been opened 6 months ago and given time to settle down a little bit.
Yes, it's going down rather nicely.
I was just telling Andrew before, actually, the thing about Rocky Rye whiskey is the history to it. It's a gimmick drink, but the original version of it was that when lots of people were brewing bourbon back in the day in the eastern states of the US, quality control was a bit shit house and a lot of the stuff was barely potable. So what they did was they'd stick rock candy in there and stir it in to sweeten it up and actually make it taste okay. Now that it's sold as a cocktail drink and we drink more of it than we should. Anyway, so enough of that. That was the plan. So I set out to buy it bit by bit. And I worked out my colour scheme. And the colour scheme basically is this idea that because they're a demon, come on, get out of there, they don't rank up very well. Because they're a demon, I've seen some pretty different ways of doing these, but I figured, well, they're organic, sort of, in a magic sort of way. So they're not going to be running around with like a big chunk of steel. They've got bits of brass, you know, burned into their skull and other parts of their body. But I figured their weapon would be like an extension of them. So I've done it like bone, as though it's like their horns that have grown out of their hand to emulate a sword, but it's actually part of the organism.
Yeah.
And I've done that across the whole army. So the technique for painting the sword is the same technique I've used to paint the horns and, you know, every other bit of thing on these miniatures. And it feeds into the sort of monochrome concept. There's no steel in this. There's the bronze, the red, the black, and the bone. Actually, I lied. There is steel. There's steel on the steel on these chaps. But yeah, so I could have done the weapons in steel, but I think I like the bone as a concept for giving a sense of what the hell are these things made out of. That seemed to do the trick that I wanted to do.
It's also it's a great spot colour for the army. It makes it stand out. Like you can see it from 6 feet away. It's like, oh, what's that?
Well, yeah, it does stand out. And you paint a lot of horses' asses, I've noticed as a miniature painter. If we stop looking at Fred's butt, his chain G-string.
That's your boy, Tommy.
These guys have got a fucked up sense of humour. Even the axe, I did the same way. There's a bit of shadow on that, but it keeps the same theme concepts going through, only his is bigger than everybody else's.
That's why he's the king.
That's right, he's got the big thumpy stick. Fred's one-hit one, what's that goblin one?
The goblin one?
The one-hit wonder thumper thing?
Oh,
Wallopers one-hit
wonder.
wonder.
One-hit wonder. God, that was one of my favourite things in my Goblin Army back in the day.
Oh, I was on the receiving end of that thing. I think it's hilarious but mean.
Oh, I stick him on a wolf and just charge him at the enemy. He always did something.
He just chopped up a thane usually. He's like, what the fuck?
What did he cost? Like 30 points or something.
Yes. Oh my god.
Yeah.
I've been traumatised by some of my experiences with Andrew.
That's so funny, mate.
But this army had a weird development, right? I bought a couple of boxes and I started painting these flesh hounds. And they were coming along nicely. They seem to work. It's basically a spray painted the entire army, a bit of undercoat white, spray painted the whole fucking thing in red. Then realised that the red that comes out of a pot is a bit different, so I needed to patch up. I had to do a fast, just slop all over, just to brush it up everywhere else to blend the colours in, because the spray paint never gets everywhere. Black wash over everything, Nuln oil or whatever they're calling it at the time, and dry brush the shit out of it, and that's all the red's done. I don't think I did any other layers of different kinds of red.
That's what we love about Demon Armies. You can paint them up super quick.
Yep. And the metal is just the same trick basically. Although
Bronze and what's that browning that we all love to use?
I used the black on this ones.
I use black.
Yeah, I know the brown one you mean. It's that mid-tone brown that, you know, as soon as the supply chain problems turned up with COVID, every fucking game store in Australia was cleaned out of the shit.
Yeah, Griffin Sepia or something like that.
I think that's what they call it now. They had something else for it before.
Right, okay.
Yeah, anyway, the one you used to shade everything.
Yes. Liquid Talent, it's called.
Okay.
Because it just covers up everything. It covers up every little mistake on your miniature. Put this on it, and it just vanishes. It's like magic.
I must admit, I've painted up 2 World War II armies, including all the tanks with that stuff.
Right,
yeah,
there you go.
Yeah,
It
base
works
coats,
for
slop
everything,
over the
yeah.
tank, and dry brush. And a World War I army, one of the World War III armies, and I'm using one of the boats at the moment.
There you go. Yeah.
Sailing ships. So yeah, magic stuff. Anyway, that digression aside, so I got those, and back before the world turned to shit with disease and everything, I used to do a fair bit of travel, and I got into the habit of finding model shops while I was overseas.
You have a very understanding wife.
Well, you know what? The first one we did was a Hong Kong trip. No, a lie. It's Shanghai trip. We were in Shanghai, and we went looking for Games Workshop in Shanghai. We had no fucking idea what we were doing. So we found out where it was supposed to be, because I'd looked in a magazine or something. I think it was still on hard copy at the time. And we went to this address, more or less, got lost, asked a friendly police officer, because this is back when China and Australia were still trying to be friends. And he very politely directed us there. We go there, and the fucking place is just shut. It's just closed like a few days before. So we asked around the shopping malls to where they've moved the store to, and it's 40 degrees in Shanghai. It's the middle of summer there. So we had to walk like 10 or 15 minutes, not knowing where the hell we were, past construction sites to find the shop, only to find out it didn't open until next week. Because it just, moved. So after that shit, my wife is online behind the Great Firewall of China trying to figure out where the fuck this other one is, because there's supposed to be 2 of them in Shanghai. And it turns out to be across town. So we find a taxi or some shit, go across the river into Pudong, which is the part which has got all the big fucking buildings everyone sees in all the photos. And apparently it's behind this entertainment centre, this big function hall. So we're out in the middle of the sun in this area, which is all open roads with no traffic, fucking lawn as far as the eye can see, and a festival theatre type thing in the background. And we think, fuck, we're on the wrong side, we've got to go around this whole thing. Meanwhile, there's like one phone box, and it's the only feature anywhere on the roads for miles. And there's a bloke standing next to it, just hung up the phone, and his wife was standing next to him, bashing him over the head with a shoe.
Okay, he's done something wrong.
Yeah, I don't know what he'd done, but he had the most sheepish look on his face.
Oh dear.
It's like he found out that he'd spent all his money on miniatures, maybe.
Yeah.
So that bit of domestic violence was going on. And then we finally found this underground mall, and after running around that for 5 or 10 minutes, we found a shop. And I'm pretty sure, from memory, that's where I bought Fred.
Ah, right, there you go.
And I was checking out the books. It's interesting because they're laid out to have the English and the Chinese language rules on the same double-page spread. So that's, looks a little different. There he goes, got a nice set of bronze armour. It counts as heavy armour, unless you're lucky to roll up something a bit more useful on the table. This guy is a glass cannon. It's a really high initiative. hits like a ton of bricks, but if you hurt him first, he doesn't have a lot of protection.
Right.
So they only get the 5+ ward.
Plus the armour.
Yeah, 5+ armor, 5+ ward.
Yeah.
His toughness is what, 5 or 6.
Probably 6. Yeah.
But you know that still doesn't. It's still within the realm of hurting him with a lot of things.
Yeah. Mass fire from handguns. And 6 is to hit, but 6 to wound. But yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, war machines. Just
Oh man, I spent a lot of time, mostly with the media, giving me shit for hiding him.
Right.
So I mastered the art of hopping from cover to cover.
Yeah.
So you only have to spend one turn out of the fray.
Yeah.
And hopefully at that point he's got so many other things to shoot at that I've never had him killed on the way in.
Right.
I think one time Amelia had just a massive gunline Empire army, including a tank.
Yeah.
And he hit him with a cannonball and he bumped off like 5 out of 6 wounds or something.
Oh, Christ.
And the little fucker survived the rest of the game. Because when he hits, he fucking goes to town.
There's not much left to hit back.
Anyway, so that's what happened with that. So that was a fucking hilarious trip around. Then I think in the next year we were back in Hong Kong. So we went looking for a game shop. We found this place called Fun Atelier. I have no idea why it's called that. But I went and bought a bunch of stuff there, including, I think I got some of these guys. Then, because, you know, I feel like an international mall rat sometimes. My wife likes shopping, so we spend a lot of time shopping. So we've got these bags full of fucking stuff, and I've got like, 2 or 3 boxes of miniatures in there. And we go to like a massage place. Always a little bit sus in that part of the world. But my wife likes to get her feet massaged, so we're sitting around there, and I completely fucking forgot the shopping bags. I left them there. And we thought we grabbed some, we thought we had them all, so we fucked off up the street around the corner on the way back to the hotel before I went, fuck, we've left $200 worth of Games Workshop miniatures in a massage joint in the middle of Mong Kok, which is that part of Hong Kong which has a reputation. Mong Kok means busy corner, by the way.
Oh, okay. I was thinking of something else, but yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, well, if you ever hear cock in Chinese, it means corner.
Ah, right, okay.
Yeah, not what you're thinking.
No.
So we head back thinking, because we were like the last customers, they were shutting up shop. We're thinking, fuck, we're going to have to go back tomorrow, hope it hasn't been thrown out, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And there's a lovely woman who works there, came running around the corner looking for us, sees us up the street, waves to us, is like shaking the bag and things, and so we sort of ran down and got her, and I gave her some money, I don't remember how much, whatever I had in my pocket, to thank her for it, and got my toys back and went back to the hotel.
Wow. So it could have never happened.
Yeah. Then a year later we were in Beijing, because this is what we used to do back in the day, when you could. And we went looking for another miniature shop, because apparently there was one in Beijing. And it took fucking ages to find, because Beijing is freaking enormous, and there's shit all over the joint in Beijing. It doesn't make sense the way that a Western city, like if you Western city makes sense at all. Everything's mixed up together. So I think we caught a train to roughly the right neighbourhood, and we went into like 3 different buildings before we found the one that actually had the shop in it. Got some fucking strange looks from security guards who didn't know what the hell we were talking about. And found this bookshop which had a miniature game section in it. And they were having a War Machine tournament that day. Yeah, War Machines are more skirmish level. And they had a tournament between people who lived in different districts of Beijing. They'd all turned up, and there's like a dozen tables of people playing this skirmish level.
Oh, cool.
A bit like steampunk version of Warhammer, which I suppose is kind of what Warhammer's turned into, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, probably a bit more of a popular game, because you didn't have to buy as many figures, and the economy is a little different there.
Yeah.
And that's where I got the Army book. So I spent the rest of the trip in Beijing going, oh, well, I've got my Khorne Army book now. Maybe I'll do a Zed Army, and then maybe I'll do a Slam Army, because it's all in the same fucking book.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's where the Army came about. And I was 2 units into painting it when Games Workshop blew up the fucking world.
And mightily upset we were.
Yeah. So we mucked around with a couple of different versions of the rules for a bit because the 9th Age was coming out, and then we decided it's too much like hard work, so we shelved it for a few years and we played some other game systems. Then I thought, you know what, I've got these miniatures burning a hole. I still want to finish it just out of bloody mindedness, even though we weren't playing Warhammer at the time. So I dug them up and I started painting them again. And we decided, you know what, let's not fuck around here. Let's just play 8th edition. We've got all the books that we need. We may as well just keep at it.
Yep.
So we did. So jigging these guys out and painting them again was part of the decision to get back into playing Warhammer 8th edition, and that got us back into. I used to blog. I've still got a blog called Cognition Fatigue on WordPress, and we started to do videos instead because we've seen some people doing good videos. So that's how the channel started. So there's a whole lot of weird shit involved in this army.
It's had quite the journey.
Yeah. Now, I planned this army out to be 2,500 points. It ended up being more like 3. So I usually drop one of the units of blood crushers and maybe a few dogs or whatever, just to get it down to the average 2,500 point game. And my running joke with this army, this is somebody else's joke that I stole actually. The way to win a game with demons is you set them up, you go make a cup of tea, you come back and they've killed everything. It kind of works that way more often than not.
I'd say it's a fairly one-dimensional army. Let's face it, you've only got one thing to do. That is to get into contact with the enemy as quickly as possible. Because you're generally massively outnumbered, because they're just so bloody expensive.
It is all about maneuver.
Yes. So how does this army actually play?
I've got a couple of basic principles. The first one, this applies to just about any army, is if you want a job done, have 2 things to do it. Because one of them's going to get fucked up on the way in. Fix them and flake them.
Sure, yeah.
Always works, with these guys especially.
So hit them in the face with the infantry and then in the flank with the monstrous cavalry.
Yes.
Right.
If you're up against a super shooty army, you basically have no infantry left. But that's okay because they're super shooty and therefore less fighty. And when a block of these motherfuckers, what are they? Particularly if they're supported by Fred, hits the flank of a shooter army, I've seen entire lines just collapse one turn after another.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah.
Fucks it right up. The other thing is you want to get combo charges. You want to try and get some rank and file with Fred.
Yeah.
If you get that to work, you're pretty much guaranteed to crush through something. So timing, getting your movements right so you don't get charged when it's not convenient for you. I think you get +1 strength on the charge or some shit, I'm not sure. And being able to get your combos to work, that's the synergy trick.
Sure.
So you use dogs to either go for war machines because you can infiltrate with them. It's not always a good idea, or you use the dogs in order to create a problem for the other side to disrupt them just enough. Kind of like the way some people would use an eagle, but instead of just soaking up a charge, you use them to create a bit of a threat as well.
Well, they're actually quite dangerous, aren't they?
Yeah, you can't ignore them. They're 2 wounds each. I usually field them in blocks of 5, or I might add a couple of guys. I like to have just one unit, add a couple of dudes to it just to soak up some spare points. They will fuck up light to medium cavalry really well. And they can take a charge from light cavalry, even with spears and things, because they've got so many wounds.
Yeah.
This army often does more damage to itself than the fucking winds of magic.
Yes, it's very fickle.
Yeah. And I've found that the most unreliable part of it is the blood crushers, or juggers, because when they hit they're good, but there's no ranks to them, so you're just relying on kill, and sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
Get them on a flank and it works alright. And again, if you're throwing Fred with them, then you get enough just general.
There's so much combat res, it doesn't matter how many ranks they've got.
Yeah. And the other main trick with this army, I'll show you what I did with my herald. I'll just get a bit of clear stuff behind it. There's no way I was going to spend 25, 30 bucks on a fucking Herald because they look exactly the same as the rank and file miniatures. So what I did was, get the thing in focus. What I did was I got an all plastic guy and I converted him. I put a special base on him, which is actually one of the metal standards with the blood on it. Just painted it up so it indicates he's different. And I put a different weapon on him. This weapon was inspired by that Game of Thrones episode where the Viper takes on the mountain and gets his head crushed.
Sure, yeah, that was a good little fight, yeah.
Yeah, because he had that sort of short pole arm with effectively a sword on the end of a stick.
Yeah.
I thought that looked good, and it's suitably prominent compared to a normal sword, and I can just make it out of spare shit that I had lying around on the sprue. So it doesn't... You put the right head on him, the right weapon on him, a bit of a bigger base, and that's pretty much all that Games Workshop did with their Herald miniatures.
Yeah, yeah.
But you need to put a Herald in each unit, because the Herald gives you the option for a couple of things. One of them is Frenzy, which you don't use because everyone then baits your fucking unit into getting into bad places and they get flank charged, which is exactly what Sean tried to do to me, and he was very confused when it didn't work. I think he felt that he'd been ripped off at that point. What I do is I give them Hatred, because that way you can control them properly, then you can pick your charge properly, and they still have a buff in the fight.
Yep.
And that makes enough of a difference with these fuckers when they charge in with their +1 strength that does the job.
Yep.
So, and he gets a bit one-dimensional. You play a couple of games with this and you think, I'll pick up one of my other armies now. It's getting a bit same.
Yeah, I find the same thing with the nobles. That they got a few units that can fly around and do stuff, but essentially it's move forward, grind something down into dust, and there's not a lot of subtlety to it.
And you know what? You probably have the same level of success with your Nurgle army that I've had with this one.
I find Nurgle armies are just absolutely brutally effective.
The only time this army has lost outright was to your Nurgle army, because it's only 1750 points in that game. This army doesn't work below about 2,000 points. It's worth noting. You need at least 2,000 for it to work. And the only other time it's lost was not that I remember at least, was against Mark's zombie horde army.
Yes.
Because we got the rules of vampire a bit wrong, and I didn't know what the hell I was in for anyway. So
yeah.
I fucked up my tactics too. But again, this army doesn't work very well at 1,000 points.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, you need a couple of grand.
Yeah, you need Fred. You need Fred and friends, basically.
Right. Or a Demon Prince. That's probably the only thing this army is missing is the Demon Prince.
Yeah, the Demon Prince, great concept, great miniatures. Stats-wise, they're good intermediate. But it's not pure enough xenophobic Khorne.
Oh, okay, all right. I mean, you could convert your own. You could make your own, and really go to town on it.
Yeah.
Or do you now consider this army to be done like this?
It's done.
Yep.
Yeah. I suppose a Demon Prince is part of the core lore. It makes perfect sense to have it. Except the Demon Prince, is that a human that got exalted up to a demon?
I believe that's the way it works, isn't it? Yeah.
Because some of these demons just cough up with a warp as demon. I don't think they actually started as human or anything.
Right. Yeah, I think. Yeah, Demon Prince is a reward from the Chaos Gods.
Because everyone's got their own interpretation. It's all fantasy magic, make it up anyway.
Of course, yeah.
But I tend to see a Demon Prince as being something that is like the equivalent of a greater demon, but the leader for a Chaos Warrior army.
Oh, okay.
So I have this sort of xenophobic level of what purity in Khorne should look like.
Okay.
And a greater demon and all the other bloodletters, etc. is basically my idea of it.
Yep.
If it shoots, it's not Khorne, this is pretending. Fortunately, they don't have any magic wielding Khorne. That would really bugger up the narrative.
Yes. I think with the Hell Cannon, I would probably sort of lean towards saying, yep, that's okay if they're doing a siege. Because if this army was to lay siege, I mean, half the army wouldn't actually be able to do anything. So
that's true.
Having a Hell Cannon or two would make sense in that very specific scenario, I think.
Yeah.
If they were in the mortal realm, it's like, okay, that's a big fuck off castle. How are we going to get into it? It's like, hey, we'll get a Hell Cannon, blast a hole in it, Jugglers can charge in.
Yeah. I mean, look, the only other way is to have blood ladders.
Siege engine, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And battering rams, I suppose. You can do that.
But then you've still got half your army just going, sure, hope they make it. We don't have anything to do. So.
And Fred landing on the battlements, I suppose.
Oh, yeah, he'd be a high priority target, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Flapping about.
Yeah, that would be...
We've all seen Lord of the Rings and the Nazgul flying around
the
White City, fucking taking out trebuchets and shit.
Yeah, exactly. I suppose that like, it does make sense. But
it's a very niche thing, I suppose, yeah.
I don't know, yeah. And I suppose the only other thing about this army is, when I was painting these guys up, and these guys look a little different to the old metal ones, which are more like muscular beefcake guys with two-handed axes.
Yeah.
I like these ones more, not because they're better miniatures, but because the character of them is really fucked up. These guys, let's see if I can pluck one out without disrupting the entire fucking unit. They don't rank well at all. They remind me of those war games you get that like sketchy meth heads.
Oh, okay, yeah.
There's always a few guys at the club that clearly have a substance issue. And it's got that wiry, hunched over, mean faced,
edgy,
stab you in the face when they have a little fit look about you, and you know they're gutless by themselves, but they're just, you get the right chemicals in them and they tip over the fucking edge or something. So I've always seen bloodletters as being the meths. Whereas this guy, look how fucking angry he is, especially if you get the ones with the other demon face on him. He just looks like an angry guy. Mm-hmm. Not a lot of brains, a lot of very upset about something. And I kind of see him as more of a roid rage kind of guy. He didn't get those muscles all of his own exertion. Oh, I should point out, because it was fine class, the fucking whip broke during assembly, so I had to do something about that, so I just stuck a blade on it.
Good old fine cast.
Yeah, the whip doesn't do anything anyway, on this version of the rules. So it just gives him his extra hand weapon for an extra attack.
Yeah.
Skulls everywhere. Cloven hoofs, etc., etc. But that's my emerging philosophy about demon armies, is they represent the four kinds of gamers that you get. So you got the sketchy ass ones, who when they're not, stealing miniatures from somebody or spending their money on something else. Then you get the, well, we all know you go to the Games Workshop on Games Night, there's a 50-50 chance it's going to stink so bad you're not going to stick around. So that's Nurgle.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then you've got the ones that cheat and have particularly interesting rules explanations and pretend that they didn't roll that dice that they rolled. So that's a pretty good description of Zench.
The tricksters, yeah.
It's all about the magic.
Okay, yeah. All right.
And then you get the ones that are just making far, far too many jokes about all the sexual shit that they're not getting up to because they're war gamers.
Well, the deviant goss. They get up to some stuff, don't they?
Oh, look, I suppose they do these days. You know what? Maybe they did before. I don't know. I can't remember. It's a long time ago. I painted my fingernails once.
Yes, I remember that.
Yes. But yeah, no, there's always those games that talking far more about the sexual innuendo, dodgy teenage jokes than they're actually getting.
Yes, quite animated about it too.
I don't know if that was the idea that the Games Workshop people had in mind when they went through the full forces of chaos, but I wouldn't be surprised then.
No, wouldn't be surprised at all.
Anyway, so that's it. It's my 3,000 points worth of charge forward and do what they do.
It's a killer looking army and it is very effective.
Yep. I think I've only lost twice. I've had one tie against Lizardmen. The fuckers don't break.
Yeah, rolling 3d6 possessed, cold-blooded, yeah.
Yeah, that was a tough fight. So we got that one down to a tie, but otherwise they've done quite well for themselves, these fellas.
Yeah. I found the best way to defeat a demon army is just poison. Get as much poison into your army as you possibly can.
Yeah, it's every 60 hit wounds automatically.
Yeah, so you just bypass a whole bunch of unfortunate stuff and the other guy's rolling a 5 plus 3 ward.
Well, I suppose you're using Nurgle and you do that all the fucking time.
Yes, especially if you get that power that poison attacks on a 5+ instead of a 6+.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Now you get that guy and you put him in a horde.
That's right, yeah,
You
you're
get 40 or 50
fucking-
of them.
Yeah.
And then he just rolled 30 dice, and it's like every 5 or 6 is just, sorry, that's the strength 4 attack. That just all went automatically.
God, that's irritating.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've done that to my dwarf army, actually.
Or just knocks whole ranks off.
Yeah, I mean, it saves the trouble of having to roll against that toughness 4 nonsense.
Yeah.
So that's the army down the length. Anyway, we got a bunch of armies between us, so we thought we might do a few more armies upgrade videos in between all the battle reports and everything. So I hope you liked it. I hope you like my red army of rather efficient, lazy, don't have to do too much of it to try and win minis. And my trip down memory lane is staggering around Asia, getting lost trying to find miniatures. So yeah, feel free to hit like, subscribe, tell your friends, and time to call it a night.